Now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for staying tuned to the second hour of the show. Just Energy Radio is brought to you by soulhealer.com, and at soulhealer.com you can find out about all the products and services I offer, including my new book, Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, which looks at our history through the lens of mythology. Also, I want to remind everyone, if you're listening to this hour of the show in the archives, whether it's in iTunes, YouTube, or on the Just Energy Radio webpage, that Just Energy Radio has moved to Thursday evenings from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're home and you want to come listen to the show live, go into the chat room, please do. But as always, you'll be able to find the archives or sign up for our Facebook or, like us on Facebook. We put all the show schedules. We put links to the archives on our Facebook page. That's another way that you can keep in contact and keep informed of what's going on here on the show. And last announcement, in June 2013, myself and my good friend Brian Forrester are planning a tour to Peru. Well, actually, he lives there. I'm going to be going down to join him, and you are invited to come with us. And we're calling it the Science and Spirit Tour, where we get to go and look at ancient sites, and we're going to do some remote viewing and touching the rocks and feeling into them and communing with the gods and our ancestors. Now, how cool is that? I think it'll be phenomenal. Anyway, I will have more details, I promise, next week. But, if it's something that you might be interested in, mark on your calendar the first week of June, and I will have more precise dates next week. Okay, in this hour, we're going to be speaking with Norio Hayakawa about Area 51, underground bases, and the global deception. And if this chat window wouldn't stop popping up in front of my face, I could read his information. Okay. Norio Hayakawa calls himself an unorthodox ufologist and activist. He has spent almost 10 years specifically investigating Area 51 in Nevada. After more than 45 years of researching the UFO phenomena, he says that a conditioning of belief systems have orchestrated since 1949 by the manipulative force that is preparing mankind for a near future mysterious scenario. I don't know. I think we might have to ask him about that because inquiring minds want to know. The ingrained and altered realities behind both Area 51 and Dulce will play a role in that scenario. His webpage is noriohayakawa2012.blogspot.com. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio, Norio. Norio, how did you become interested in the whole UFO phenomena in the first place? It seems like you've been part of it or interested in it even before Betty and Barney Hill came on the scene.
That's true. That was around 1961 when I first got interested. As a high school student, and it suddenly, out of the blue, I just started recalling what my father used to tell me when I was just growing up, in the first or second grade in a grade school. When I was growing, my father used to tell me of how he witnessed a strange object flying over the Bay of Yokohama, Japan, one night while he was fishing. He used to like to night fish all the time, and he knew the stars and the whole astronomy and the whole thing. But one particular night, I believe he said it was around 1948 or 1947, while he was fishing around 2 or 3 in the morning at the Bay of Yokohama, Japan, he did encounter a strange greenish ball of fire slowly maneuvering itself over the bay, and he had never seen anything like that in his whole life. And he had seen hundreds and hundreds of meteors and so on, and so he knows the sky, but only on one particular night. He described his strange encounter with that greenish ball of fire. So he used to tell me that story when I was growing up. So, but anyway, I forgot about it until when I was in high school. I began to suddenly have an interest again in flying saucers. And so that's how I started. I started joining organizations, and I even began to subscribe to magazines like and newsletters like from Nightcap in the United States and APRO and so on. And in Japan, I used to belong to other organizations as well, including some contactee groups. So I became quite familiar with what has been happening until that time, and especially the biggest thing that happened to me was in 1964 when I first heard of the famous Lonnie Zamora landing case in New Mexico in the United States. And I read that article while I was a university student in Japan, in April of 1964, and I was astounded by that incident. So that's how I really got more into it. And then the following year, in 1965, I actually moved to New Mexico because coincidentally I got a scholarship at a university over there in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I now reside, coincidentally again.
Couldn't get away, huh?
That's right. So ever since that time, yes, I have had, more than 50 years of study and investigation. I've had 50 years of actual research, interviewing hundreds of people, going to, sighting areas and so on. And so I have accumulated a whole wealth of information about this whole subject matter. And I still continue investigating because it's one of the most important topics you can ever think of, even though there is no hard evidence, as far as I'm concerned. I haven't seen any hard evidence that we have been visited or are being visited by physical extraterrestrial entities in physical spacecraft. Now, that's the bottom line as far as I'm concerned, but I'm very open to a lot of things. So we have not progressed anyway at all, since 1947, as far as post-war era of the sightings of so-called UFOs. We have not progressed a bit. So we are just as lost about this subject matter as when we started. That's the bottom line as far as I'm concerned. But that doesn't mean that the phenomena doesn't exist because of so many reports of credible people. So there has to be something there. And that's why I am still interested in this subject matter. And during the course of my research, I began to also get interested in what the government can do, the government's technology's role in this phenomena.
Well, yeah, and we're definitely going to get into that whole government angle of it because I think it's pretty big. But let me ask a question because I'm the host. I can, I guess. Anyway, You said that you got interested in UFOs in the 1960s and you were joining groups and doing these things. I mean, were there many people interested in UFO phenomena back in the early 60s?
Oh, yes. Because in the early 60s, people, part of the population had this attachment to unexplained phenomenon. So people like Frank Edwards, who wrote books on that subject matter, were very popular. And, of course, the world of flying saucers was always part of a culture in the United States. Ever since 1947, actually, and into the early 50s, mid-50s, and then the early 60s. If you mentioned the word flying saucer, people knew what they were talking about, because the flying saucer phenomenon was part of the Americana, and it still is. It still
so in
is.
Japan, you didn't have that same kind of understanding, or I'm not sure how to explain it, but the same kind of culture toward UFOs?
Well, initially I was very much into the so-called extraterrestrial hypothesis, or ET hypothesis, which was very popular in the 50s and the 60s, early 60s. But then things started changing a little bit, and when you got into the 70s, it seems like a lot of researchers have moved on to other possible explanations of this phenomena, even up to, abandoning the most popular theories at that time about UFOs, namely that they're coming from outer space. In the late 70s, things began to change, and people like John A. Keel, one of the greatest, I would say researchers or writers, as well as Dr. Jacques Vallée, they all began to entertain the possibility that maybe this phenomenon has nothing to do with extraterrestrial visitations. It may be some kind of a interdimensional mischievous entities that are dramatizing and staging some kind of a manipulative trickery on part of the population for some reason or other. And
that's a pretty interesting statement that you've made. I mean, I've heard the whole concept about the interdimensional beings, which, and I definitely want to talk about that a little more, but about the manipulation and trickery part, I find interesting because, and there are some people that might think I'm being a little heretical in the New Age community, but I make the comment myself that people often say, well, you should listen to your spirit guide, or you should, talk to your angels. And the comment that I make back to them sometimes is, but how do you know who they are? And how do you know they're not just some, interdimensional being or whatever, from somewhere else that's trying to control and manipulate your life? I mean, is that kind of what you're talking about here?
Exactly. See, because I am a realist in the sense that I don't just take any reports as facts, and so there are several types of realities in this cosmos, I believe, and the number one reality that we can truly say that's real is a physical reality, is this thing called physical reality, and by basing things on physical reality, first of all, I have yet to see any solid, tangible, concrete, irrefutable documentary evidence whatsoever that we have ever been visited or are being visited by extraterrestrial advanced entities physically in their physical craft of some kind. I have not seen any evidence. I see a lot of third-hand the accounts or nothing direct evidence I have come so far. And so the bulk of the scientists in the world today do not consider ufology legitimate discipline because it's, unfortunately, I have to say, sadly, that ufology is still considered a fringe, so-called fringe topic, or science, if you will. But we have to live with it. But that does not mean that in this world there are mysterious things, because yes, this whole thing about life and death itself is a mystery. So anybody that says that there's nothing mysterious about this world is a fool, because this life and death itself is a mystery. We still don't know much about what reality is, except for one type of reality, that is the physical reality. So when I talk about UFOs, I can talk first from only a physical point of view, and from a physical point of view, I haven't seen any evidence, but there could be other, point of view. So I'm very open. So I am not a debunker of UFOs and aliens. I hate to be a debunker, but I try to remain a healthy skeptic when it comes to UFOs and aliens, and I'm open to it. So, having said that, I did lots of researches on various topics. I have interviewed hundreds of so-called abductees who claimed that they had lost time and so on. I used to live in Phoenix, and there were cases there too. I interviewed a lot of people. I used to live in California. I interviewed a lot of people. But ultimately, I have not come to the conclusion that this whole thing is necessarily of extraterrestrial origin.
Well, then, where do you think it's coming from?
Well, that's
or how do you think? What are we seeing?
Question.
I just had John Ventry on, and we were talking about sightings over Pennsylvania, or we were talking about the Phoenix sighting, the Phoenix Lights case.
Yes.
Where are these giant crafts coming from, or who's making them, or why are we seeing them?
Well, the Phoenix sightings were peculiar, no question about it, but there are some researchers who say that certain kind of technologies were used to produce that kind of an effect in the so-called Phoenix sightings. Technologies such as, holographic technologies or, image maximization technologies or things like that, and may have been some kind of a test, psychological test over a population. Now, there are some researchers that say that, who claim that this object that was sighted around 8 p.m. in Phoenix in 1997 came from northwest of Arizona, which is basically Nevada, which is basically probably a place called Area 51. If you calculate the course of the flight, because it seemed to have appeared northwest Arizona, coming down from, Nevada, and so on. And so that's one theory, but, unfortunately, we don't have any reliable pictures. There are reportedly a few pictures of a triangular-shaped craft, but nothing clear, see? And this is the whole thing about this whole UFO sightings reports. We have not seen any clear, credible photos of any of these things, and this is the drawback. People have lots of cell phones and video cameras now, but there is still no single reliable, unmistakable photo of what I can definitely say is a flying saucer or a complete triangular aircraft. In fact, I was very disappointed last year after finding out that the so-called 1990 Belgium sighting of a triangular craft, that photo, the famous photo with three lights on the each end of this triangle, that photo was a hoax, according to the person that took it. He admitted. And another disappointment came 2 years ago when what I believe to be a credible photo taken by a Brazilian Navy in 1957 off the coast of Brazil was admittedly a hoax by that photographer. He appeared on a Brazilian TV program a couple of years ago and admitted that he created that photo. And that was investigated by a lot of people. And, seeing all these things, it's a very big disappointment, see. So I do not trust any photos or even videos, because the state of art in CGI today is just amazing. And even an amateur nowadays can create anything that looks like a UFO, mysterious UFO flying and hovering. These things can be created by CGI. So they are not real evidence. The real evidence that I'm talking about, which is lacking, is an actual artifact or actual craft itself, which we have never even seen. But does this mean that the phenomena doesn't exist? No, it could exist, but in the physical reality, I haven't seen it.
But I mean, the same thing is happening in the area of, like alternative history, skeletons of giants that are reported as being dug up at some point in time in our history, miraculously disappear, or artifacts that are found that potentially show something that's controversial or is now deemed controversial, disappear, never to be seen again. It just seems like there is this ongoing effort into covering stuff up, which includes taking hard evidence and hiding it. I'd hate to say destroying it, but hiding it somewhere. Like Warehouse 13 on TV. They just put it in a box somewhere and put it away.
Well, it's interesting, no question about it. And here comes the concept of cover-up. Is there a cover-up of these things? It's very difficult to say because this idea of a governmental cover-up is a popular portion of the increasing conspiracy theory beliefs in the UFO culture. And in the UFO culture, conspiracy is definitely a big part of it. And the problem with conspiracy theories are many. And there is a very good researcher who wrote many good articles about why people believe in conspiracy theories and why conspiracy theories are believed by a segment of the population. And there are drawbacks to conspiracy theories. Yes, there probably are a few individuals who may have gotten together with other individuals and to plan something, a takeover or something, but this kind of thing is very difficult to do in a large scale. So people who believe that there is a global government that is getting ready to create, new world order or things like this is just, it's not realistic. Because any conspiracy of such a nature can be leaked one way or the other. For example, the atomic bomb was kept secret for several years, but in the end, we got information. So nothing can be kept secret for so long. See, there's a certain limit. So in order to conspire to create a global government of this kind of a scale, it's you just don't see any evidence for it. But it's a popular theory. And
well, I mean, if there's not this big conspiracy thing going on and this big cover-up, then what are they doing at, like, Area 51? Isn't that where they're, like, developing... Well, I mean, we're developing technology, but isn't that where a bunch of the cover-up activities are happening?
Well, again, there are misconceptions about Area 51. And from a realistic point of view, Area 51, everybody knows, is United States premier military research, development, and testing complex that specializes in aviation and military aviation, avionics, and weapon systems. That's the basic premises of Area 51. The other things that come attached with Area 51 conspiracy, so-called conspiracy, includes the suspicion that there are alien activities over there, and there's other conspiracy theories that say that Area 51 is creating weapon systems for future global control. And this kind of a theory is popular among those who push this kind of conspiratorial outlook about places like Area 51. Of course, we don't know the full story about Area 51 because it's part of national secrecy, and the government has a right to keep certain kind of secrecy, especially when it comes to enemy countries and how we have to protect our military's technology, make sure that they don't disclose certain technologies so that the other, for example, enemy nations, can utilize these technologies. So certain amount of secrecy is a must. But there comes that attachment, conveniently, equating Area 51 secrecy to some kind of a conspiratorial, angle. See, so we have to be very careful. The same thing goes with other so-called underground facilities, which is just a very realistic part of the America's defense system. The underground facilities are nothing mysterious. It's just very realistic because of the proliferation of satellite espionage and satellite by the Soviet Union and all other countries. So yes, it's necessary to construct underground research facilities. That's part of the logistics of defense industry. But to associate these underground facilities with some kind of a mysterious cover-up, for example, alien type of technology being hidden under these underground facilities, it's a wild thought. It could be true, but as far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen any evidence.
But even like in Dulce, I mean, I know that you're good friends with Anthony Sanchez, who wrote his book, UFO Highway.
Yes.
And so you don't really believe in the conclusions that he met or he came to, with his conversations with the colonel about the Greys living in the base in Dulce and, something living down on the 7th level and the humans are interacting with them. Not buying that?
Well, I believe that it's a fascinating concept that is part of a growing need for a belief that we are being controlled by those entities that some people call Greys and aliens. It's a very influential belief among a segment of the population, and it's psychologically, it's a fascinating belief system, and it's possible, it's most likely that this is a convenient, belief that could be taken advantage of by possibly the military, because the military benefits from certain belief system of a segment of the population. For example, one good example is that the military and the Air Force have taken advantage for many years of people's belief that there's something alien at Area 51 in order to create a laughter curtain. And Area 51 has brilliantly, I would say, taken advantage of by the Air Force, because anybody that talks about Area 51 in the public immediately is associated with, the fringe segment of the population. And I have to sadly admit that when I talk about Area 51, most people's first concept about Area 51 is that there's something alien about that place. And it's a strategy, I believe, that was created by the Air Force to bring about a laughter curtain so that serious researchers who want to scrutinize the governmental black projects in that area will be diverted from real scrutiny, because people will think that you are just nuts, when you start investigating about Area 51. And that's the fact. So people on the street today, everybody in the whole world has heard of Area 51, and they equate Area 51 with aliens. And it's a brilliant strategy. I believe that the Air Force took advantage of this kind of association of a segment of the public's beliefs about aliens in Area 51. Because,
to cover up what they were really doing there?
What is the question now?
Well, you said that they took advantage of the alien stuff, to cover up what they were actually doing in Area 51. I mean, are they doing anything in Area 51?
Well, yeah, that's right. Because the defense contractors have always cover stories to create whenever they have very sensitive military projects, it's part of the defense contractors to create an alternative story or cover story to detract attention away from certain projects from the prying eyes of the public by creating ridiculous stories associating any kind of a location of those projects to, for example, UFOs or alien activity, so that most people or the news, the press, will not take you seriously if you want to scrutinize the how our military budgets are being used for certain programs. You know, they don't want that scrutiny by any kind of a curiosity seeker. That's why if they create a cover story such as alien stories, then you will not be taken seriously. So it works perfect for the Air Force and whoever that's doing all kinds of testing.
But don't you think that it is kind of backfiring a little bit, because there has been this increase in UFO phenomena, and people are going to buy Area 51 and are trying to peer in or fly over, and it seems like if they were using it to keep people away, it's not working as good as they would like.
No, it's working because the more people talk about Area 51 as a very secretive location, the more that topic is associated with conspiracy theories. And the mainstream news media and the mainstream associate conspiracy theory believers as nuts. And so the more people that go to the perimeters of Area 51 trying to, find out what's going on, the news media treats that kind of activity as, activities of a lunatic fringe. And that's a fact, see? So it doesn't hurt the government because let's face it, that place is so huge and surrounded by large hills and mountains, and it's a strategic location where a lot of experiments can be conducted and are being conducted. Look at the budgets that they have over there, and in addition to the Nevada National Security Site right next to Area 51, which is another large area, I mean, there's plenty of space to conduct programs such as development of new weapon systems or things like that in the name of, anti-terrorist activity programs and so on, So, yes, but to create the laughter curtain, which is the idea that Area 51 is associated with aliens, to create such kind of a laughter curtain is not a negative thing as far as the Air Force is concerned. They take advantage of that because they don't, they just keep doing their own thing because most people associate that facility with some kind of alien activity. And so, besides that, we don't have any proof. We don't have any proof at all that there has ever been any alien technology over there, except accounts by people who claimed to have worked at certain things. But yet we haven't seen any evidence for it. So, I have to admit that I have to stand on 2 feet on the ground because from a realistic point of view, we haven't come up with any evidence.
What about like the cattle mutilation? I know that you were exploring that and investigating that, so you don't think that was UFO related either?
I am very skeptical when it comes to any kind of alien presence. It's possible, but I have yet to see any proof. See, so that's the bottom line, and I'm open to it, and I keep open to it, and I still keep getting information and investigating the latest. I still get, reports from Dulce, New Mexico, which is 3 hours away from my home. I keep all these information because I'm still interested in finding out if all this is true or not. And I've been doing it for so many years, and I still haven't come to any conclusion. The residents in such communities as Dulce, New Mexico, they report sightings of things frequently, even this day, and so there has to be something over there. But to jump from that conclusion, saying that there's alien base over there is just it's a stretch. See, it could be anything. It could be some kind of a governmental facility over in Dulce, New Mexico, that's possibly doing some kind of biological warfare experiments or some kind of experiments. Is very possible, but everything else is hearsay and first person accounts with no evidence. We haven't seen.
But after you have, let me ask this, but after you have 10 people or 20 people that all attest to having these experiences or having these encounters, doesn't that add to any kind of credibility in your mind, even though it might be circumstantial?
Well, even there are 30 people who say that they have seen things there. The ultimate proof, unfortunately, is a physical evidence. And in the court of law, first-person account amounts to nothing. And unless you come up with solid evidence. So Dulce is a fascinating location, no question about it. It has been a fascinating place for many, many years, especially after 1967, when the United States government exploded an atomic device near Dulce, New Mexico, in 1967, underground. And ever since that explosion, rumors started happening that there is some kind of a underground base or maybe some kind of a cave was created by the government near there. But, yes, it's possible that the effects of that underground nuclear explosion in 1967 may have caused cancer and other illnesses among the population in the Dulce area. There have been, of course, I think people are aware that there's a high rate of cancer in the Dulce area. And, of course, the cattle may have been affected by this underground nuclear explosion in 1967, And, of course, everybody in that area had heard that the government exploded that device in order to help the people there by loosening the hard rock miles underground to ease the flow of natural gas in that area. So that was the, government's explanation for that experiment in 1967, but it's very possible that that experiment backfired and radiation started leaking slowly later on and maybe have affected some animals in that area like cows, cattle. And so whether this has anything to do with the beginning of so-called cattle mutilations in the early 70s or mid-70s, I don't know. It's very possible that it may have something to do with it because the government may have begun to monitor the radiation levels of certain animals in that area by by choosing certain kind of cows in certain ranches in that area. See, so all these things are speculations, but these kind of speculations are more provable or more realistic than speculations that there are aliens in an underground facility in Dulce, which I cannot say that it doesn't exist, but I haven't seen any evidence. But these rumors may be part of a ploy to create some kind of alternative cover stories to cover possible programs that are harmful to the environment under the guise of military research, such as biological research using some kind of chemicals and so on. I don't know. But
I mean, one of the things that you had on your blog page, Norio Hayakawa 2012.blogspot.com, was something called Project Bluebeam, and it sounded like it was some kind of like a mind control thing.
Oh yes, yeah, that is testified. That idea was testified by the late Gabe Valdez, who became an acquaintance since 2008. After I moved to New Mexico, I got to know him. He was the longtime New Mexico State Patrol officer in charge of that whole region of Dulce, New Mexico. He was assigned by the state of New Mexico to investigate the complaints of local ranchers over there who had lost hundreds of thousands of dollars due to some of their cows being mutilated mysteriously. And, there are many ranchers in the Dulce area who had that problem. And so many of the ranchers got together and asked the New Mexico State, I think it was a senator, to investigate this thing. And there was a big meeting in Albuquerque in 1979, attended by more than 150 people, including many ranchers. So the state of New Mexico assigned Officer Gabe Valdez, a New Mexico State Patrol officer, to be in charge of this full investigations of this cattle mutilations in that area. So he was assigned a house over there in Dulce, and he was in charge of any kind of crime, including cattle mutilations. So he stayed there in Dulce for many years, 20 years or so. He investigated hundreds of cases of mutilations, and he came to the conclusion that the mutilations were probably caused by the government and had nothing to do with aliens. In fact, Gabe Valdez told me that he believed that the government may even have created the alien story associating Dulce with the existence of this underground base, and may even have used some kind of a technology that could simulate the appearance of UFOs in that area, through holograms and so on, to deceive the observers over there that they were observing flying saucers over Archuleta Mesa, while in fact they may have been experimenting. The government may have been experimenting on the use of holographic devices and sound machines to create that illusion that there were alien activity in the Archuleta Mesa area. See, so this was not my words, but words of Gabe Valdez. And I had entertained that thought years ago, that in some future the government may have enough technologies to be able to simulate some kind of incident or a series of incidents that appears to be some kind of alien activity by the use of such devices as holographic projection devices, airborne, and also the use of sound waves, any kind of radio frequencies as part of mind control. And, of course, when you talk about mind control, you're not talking about science fiction, because the United States definitely experimented in many kind of mind controls in the 50s, and it's proven.
So is this kind of like HARP kind of thing? You know, where they send like energy waves that affect your brain?
Technology is allegedly related to the Tesla technology, which is basically new kind of technologies using alternative energy and, any kind of manipulation devices to create illusions and so on. And so some people say that the HARP project in Alaska is related to this kind of thing. But, in 1992, a Canadian journalist came out to the public, and he claimed that NASA had a technology that is called the Project Bluebeam, in which they could be able to project certain images in the sky by creating some kind of a cloud as a screen, to project certain kind of images by using three-dimensional holographic devices, such as the image of a god or image of a Muslim deity or image of Jesus Christ or, the Messiah or Buddha or anything, So Serge Monast came out with this allegation in 1992, and he started talking about it, and in 1993 he started contacting people saying that this is called the Project Bluebeam. And so it was Serge Monast who came up with that idea or that allegation. But people like Officer Gabe Valdez, I don't think he was familiar with that Project Bluebeam, but exactly what he described was exactly that governmental defense contractors working with the government, such as Sandia Corporation in Albuquerque, may have used some kind of prototype equipment to produce these images, and also may even have used remotely controlled platforms known as UAVs. At that time, in 1979, there may have been some kind of prototype remotely controlled platforms that in the shape of a flying saucer. Maybe those things may have been tested in the Dulce area in the 70s to produce an illusion that there was some kind of alien activity in that Archuleta Dulce area in order to cover the real projects that may have been there, such as contamination of the environment by storing chemical substance or nuclear waste materials in the nearby areas of Dulce. Remember that Los Alamos National Laboratory initially had a plan to spread waste materials in the Indian reservation, you see, near Dulce. But
Norio, there's the music, which means we need to go. So we need to go. But thank you so much for coming on the show today and spending time with us and sharing your knowledge and insights with my listeners.
No problem. I hope this was helpful. In a way.
Yeah. Thanks again, Norio.
Thank you so much.
All right. I will talk to you again soon. That was Norio Hayakawa. His webpage is noriohayakawa2012.blogspot.com. And next week, we have a very interesting show. We have a Carol Jean Morad, MD, who's going to be talking about voodoo. Should be very interesting. And so until next week, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy Radio.
For more show information and to contact Dr. Rita. Until next time, remember, it's all